I offer my most loving pranams at the lotus feet of my beloved Lord, the Lord of love, the Lord in my heart, my everything. Please, Swami, let Leslie step out of the way and let love speak through this body. Sai. Sai on, everyone. I must say that when I was asked to come speak here on this occasion of Christmas, I got a text from Greg, and the first thing that popped into my mind is, wow, what an unbelievable honor to speak about my true brother, Jesus. For me, Jesus has been such a special place in my heart. And I'd like to share with you why that is. And how incredibly, the fact that we can say the name, his name, the fact that we can say Sai Baba, is an unbelievable grace that you have. I know it sounds like, oh my gosh, this is nothing, but you can't believe the fact that you know his name. Swami has said that to know of the avatar, just to even hear his name, takes thousands and thousands of births of good acts, of good sadhana. To have seen him requires the great grace of your ancestors to have given you this opportunity. But to actually know him, for him to come and say to you, which he said to all of us, I've come for you. And to know that he is the Lord that resides in your heart, the highest of high, that can only come by his grace. Only by his grace. No matter how much you work in your sadhana, no matter how much you have done, it's the love of the Lord and his grace. I want to share you a story about this, actually from Jesus, from his life. When Jesus was beginning his ministry there in Israel, he had come to Galilee, which was a port next to the Sea of Galilee. And there he began to collect his disciples. And one such disciple, who did not know he's a disciple yet, was also a man who was going to become Peter. And he was an interesting man. He was very, very feisty. And he saw Jesus come, he saw Jesus do the miracles. But what really changed his heart was the fact that there was a tax collector in the city. And this Jesus asked the tax collector if he could come to his house. And this was a crazy thing to do back then, because the tax collector was considered unclean. And they would do lots of things there that were not appropriate for a usual Jewish person to partake. So Jesus went to this man's house, and they were having a gathering there. And Jesus went in. And everyone, of course, I'm sure, was very surprised that this man, this prophet, would go into this house. And he went there. And he sat down and he said, would you like to hear a story? And so everyone quieted down and they listened to this story. And the story goes like this. There once was an older man who had two sons. And there was an older son and a younger son. And the older son the father had decided to divide up his inheritance equally among his two sons. So he gave them their inheritance, and the younger son decided to go and use the money and go off into the world. And he went and enjoyed his time out in the world. He did all the things that are joyful for young people to do, indulging and so on. While the older son stayed with the father and worked in the fields and did his things and everything. Now came a great famine across the land, and this younger son lost everything. And the only thing he could know is that the way who had everything that could help him was his father. So he decided to go back to his father. And because his father had everything that he knew. So he went back to his father, and when the father saw the son come from a long distance away, the father got up and ran to him and welcomed him and told his servants to bring the best things that he has, to bring his cloak and put the cloak on him, and gave him a big hug and welcomed him home. And next what happened, of course, the older brother was looking, wait a minute, this doesn't make sense. He says to his father, wait a minute, hold on here. You gave your money to him and he squandered it. He did all those things out there, and I've been working here all this time. But when he comes here, you act as if, why did you do this? And the father said to him that, yes, you've been working here in the fields, you've been doing all this, and everything that is mine has always been yours. You had everything all this time. But this younger son, he went away, and he was lost, but now he's found. He's real, and what does this story tell? You know, over so many lifetimes, we've been born over and over again. We've come into this life, enjoying this time, just like this younger boy. As Swami said, I separated myself from myself so that I might love myself. I separated myself from myself so that I might love myself. But we as children have gone off and given all the grace to go out into the world, and because of Maya, we get lost in it. And this Maya, this illusion that we are separate from our Father, that we are not one anymore from our Father, but that we've come out into this world, we've lost that understanding. We've lost that connection. And so what happens? So over the lifetimes, just like when let's say we had good food today, right? We had some really good food today. Let's say you like pumpkin pie, right? How many people like pumpkin pie? So what happens if you eat pumpkin pie? You eat pumpkin pie now, that's great, right? Now if you eat pumpkin pie tomorrow, and then you eat pumpkin pie for lunch and dinner, and so on and so forth, what's going to happen? Are you going to still like pumpkin pie? No, you'll get indigestion, you'll not want to eat it anymore. And that's exactly how this world is. Even the Buddha said that this world will never be comforting. It is designed that way. Swami said that. There will always be bumps and jumps in this world. And after a while, we'll begin to ask, why? What is truth? What is all this? And so then what comes? We begin to search for our way out. And each one of us, I know each one of you have had your searches, and at some point in your life, in our lifetimes, we come to a point where we cry out, we cry out for help. I don't know. I don't know. And so like many, like myself, I turn to religion, I turn to various books and teachings and so on, and we find ourselves filling our heads with various teachings. And these are good because they first give us the rules and the regulations of life. But at some point, something else starts to kick in. And it happened to me, and I'm sure it's happened to you as well. That at some point, something more is missing. And what Jesus said about the law, about the scriptures, is that they mean nothing unless they're written in your heart. They mean nothing unless they're written in your heart. And for myself, I find that the same thing happened for me when I was a young man. As you heard, at around age 21, I ended up at Swami's feet. A very strange occasion for me because I was not used to this man who looks, this afro and everything. And I know many of you have heard that's my story about how I come to Swami. But one thing I referenced to Jesus, I'll never forget the day that before I actually traveled for that third time to India, that was to turn into 5 years with him, was I was in this cold garage. And there was this rickety bed. I was renting the garage space from a friend because I was almost out of money. I had nowhere else to be. And I had two pictures. I had a picture of Jesus and a picture of Sai Baba. Now, I knew I had a relationship with Jesus in some way because I could feel he's my brother, but I had no idea who this Sai Baba is with this funny hair. But I felt something there, and I fell in front of them, and I just said, one of you, just one of you, please help me. And sure enough, the help came. I ended up having enough money put into my account by Swami. It was a miracle. Because I went to the bank, my father says, go to the bank. And my father at the time was very skeptical also of Swami. And I ended up going to see Swami. And what happened to me there was this change. It was a change from living in my head to having my heart open. And this is why the Lord comes. This is why Jesus comes. Swami says, I know we all feel the suffering that's happening in this world. It's not just the suffering of us, not just the suffering of all the humanity, but the earth itself. As Hyman Johnson was saying so clearly, there's so much strife. We're living in this Kali Yuga. And Swami said that he's come here, of course, to uplift mankind. But he tells a little secret. He says, I've actually come here because of the cries of the saints and sages. The cries of the saints and sages. You don't know all the lives that you've lived to be sitting here today. You cannot be here unless you have been with the Lord so many times before. He's said that he's pulled us together every time he comes into his birth. He has brought us along. I'm sure there are people here or people listening to this who have had dreams, who have had interviews, and revelations, where they've known that they've been through this so many times before. So here we are now. As we said, Jesus says, when 2 or 3 come together in my name, I will be among them. So, when Swami opened my heart, I remember one day when I was called in for an interview. And to give you a background, before I knew Swami, I had a deep, deep, deep calling, a deep, deep desire to see Swami, a desire for God. And I used to work in Santa Barbara, and I lived in Ojai. And there's maybe a 45-minute drive between them. And I would sit in my car, and it was actually a Ford F-150 pickup truck, a 1970-something. And I would have a little boombox with me, and I would play this beautiful music every time I drove there, and I would cry because I was crying for him. Where are you, Lord? And when I remember getting to work, and I looked down, and my shirt was wet, and I had to dry it off before I went into work, because they say, what, did you spill water all over yourself? So fast forward a few years later, and I'm in an interview, and Swami turns to one devotee and says, very good worker, you do good work. And he turns to another person and says, you do great seva, you do great seva. And then he turns to me, and he says, very good devotion, many tears. And as he was doing this, I was transported back to sitting in that F-150 pickup truck, that he was hearing me, that he did hear me, and that everything takes time. Everything takes time. The one thing that's so important in this journey that we're taking comes down to one word. I was speaking at a retreat a few months back, and someone came and asked me, Leslie, what is it that makes you drive the way you do, to be connected to Swami? What is it that shines? And I said, it's one thing: intensity. Intensity. If you ask yourself, if we ask ourselves, and Swami asks us, what is the most important quality that's important in a devotee? If you really, really come down to it, is our intensity of our desire. That's the wrong word, our intensity for a relationship with Him. That's the most important thing. That's if you have that, you have everything. So, once we have this intensity, as Jesus says, what is that, if we translate it to His words, what is that intensity? What is that place that you live when we live in our heart, when we truly raise ourselves up to that level? What is that called? It's the kingdom of heaven. The kingdom of heaven that's within us is that place that we are yearning for. It is that presence. It is that place that is veiled behind this veil of Maya, this veil of body consciousness of being this who we are. And Jesus taught us, just as Swami taught us, that the only thing keeping us from there is the fact that we believe we are this body. We believe that we are attached to all these things. These are just personas that we have. It's a temporary thing. So let me take you back to another mention. I want to talk a little bit about Jesus too. So I was maybe working or doing the service there in the ashram for about 6 months. And I never So, as I said, I've been very, very connected to Jesus, and I felt he's my brother, but I never had any experience with him. The other experience, well, let me tell you this first. This will be very interesting. So prior to this experience with Jesus, my second dream that I ever had with Swami, this happened on my second trip being in India. And in this dream, I'm outside of the mandir and it's like dusk. The sun has just come down. And I hear this talking. And I go over and I see people standing around, and I see Shirdi Sai Baba come out of the mandir. And this is me. I didn't know who Swami really is back then, let alone Shirdi Baba. And Shirdi Baba comes out, and then I hear people saying, "Oh, Swami's coming." And I look, and who's coming on a horse? It is Swami. And I immediately knew because I read about this briefly. Who is Swami? He's the Kalki avatar. He's the one riding on the horse. And not only that, but it reminded me in Revelations about the one who sits on the horse in a burgundy robe, and he has a sword in his hand, and the sword is truth. What is Sathya Sai Baba? It's truth. And he gets off the horse, and I'm like, what's going on here? How can there be two avatars at the same time? Aren't they supposed to be the same person? Oh, he's really messing with my mind back then. Back then I couldn't fathom, how is it that you can have two people at the same time? Well, the truth here is that Swami teaches us there is only one consciousness here, and it resides in each one of these bodies. Same thing teachers taught us. God is one. He's inside of all of us. And this individuality that we feel is the play, his play. So here's Shirdi Sai and Sathya Sai, and they come together and they start having a conversation. Now, what kind of a conversation would an avatar have with an avatar? I wanted to hear. What could they be speaking about? And as I'm getting closer to them, I hear Shirdi Baba say, "Wow, what a great question! What a great question!" And then I go and I say to them, "What's the question?" And Swami turns around and he goes on my head like this. The next thing that starts happening is I zoom out of my body and I am now flying through the universe. And I'm feeling bliss inside of me. And I'm just going through like you would, I don't know, those sci-fis where your stars and galaxies are going by. And it keeps going, and I'm like, wow, I'm going to get somewhere. And it keeps going on and on and on, and it's almost like a record that just keeps going click, click, at the end, click, click. And a very deep understanding comes to me. I realize that all of this, the stars, the experience, it's all happening in the mind. This is all mind stuff. This is not it. What really is beyond this, and I realized what was really it was the bliss inside my heart. You know, in spirituality, especially in the beginning, or even now, we're all looking for the Hollywood, the special effects in spirituality. Swami gave a discourse during a Christmas discourse telling this, that I'm standing here and you've been listening to me for so long, and I'm speaking here, and you don't understand the grace, the significance of the fact that you are here hearing me speak. But I tell you this, when you go back to your rooms, you're going to go do jhana, you're going to go do your meditation, and if I come and appear in your meditation for 1 second, you go, wow, Swami, he appeared to me. But here you are, and you're having it right now. We're having it right now. And Swami says what Jesus taught us was a simplicity. That every moment of life, every second, is a gift. Swami teaches us to be in the present. What is the present? It's a present. It's a gift. And it's a hard one to stay in, isn't it? Because we're thinking about what's happened before, what did I do before, oh my gosh, I did this and I did that. And the next we're thinking about what? We're thinking about what's going to happen next. And we get caught in this over and over again. So Swami and Jesus, what do? Yes, they give us the teachings. But what's more important than that? They gave themselves to us. And that's what took me a long time to fully, really sink into myself, that when God comes into our life, the most important thing about that is that direct relationship, that direct feeling, that direct connectedness. There's nothing in between you and Him. Nothing. Nobody. And the amazing thing is that we have this incredible opportunity now. But the highest of high came to us and said, I'm here. You've probably heard this story before where the students and people were in a room and Swami materializes this medallion. And on the medallion is a picture of the world. And there's writing all over it, and it looks different than it is now. And then Swami tells them that this medallion is the future, what will happen. And he gives it to them. And they're all looking at it. They're all, what does this say? What does that say? And Swami is over there standing while they're all totally into this. And you know what he's saying to them? So sweetly, I'm here. I'm here. You know, everyone's in now. What's going to be the future? What's going to happen? It's like candy, this world, isn't it? The promotions, the pat on the back, you did great. Or the opposite of that, which is the same thing, that, oh, you did a bad thing, you messed up, you made a mistake. All of that is just distraction to pull us back to Him. Pull back to Him. And it's because, especially as we move forward as devotees, the more we try to go back to the old ways, the harder it's going to be. It gets harder. I know it myself. It's like every little turn away is like a prick. I see people going, yeah. So, what is the way out? What is our job here? Who are we? Did Sai Baba, did Jesus come for us to lay down and worship them? That they are way up high? And that we're nothing, we're all sinners, bad people, and all that stuff? It's not like that. The reason that we've been taught this is, unfortunately, you know, a lot of the teachings that we get, a lot of it, as you saw, Swami materialized that little book on Jesus' life and said, the real story is here. Well, darn, I wish we could know this. What's really in there? But why doesn't He let us see this? Well, I'll tell you why. In an indirect way. So, working in the canteen, Swami had sent a young German fellow to work with us. He was about my age or maybe a few years older. And he says, Swami, I just had an interview and Swami told me that I should be working here. So he started working with us. And as he began working with us, and I'm interfacing with him, He had the same characteristics and personality as a person that I had a very hard time to get along with, and that was my father. And I thought that here I'm in India, halfway around the world, that I'm free of that, right? But no, never think you can run away from the things that you have to face. So here's this German young fellow, Siron, such a beautiful young man. And his behavior, the way he talks, the precision of, I'm not trying to say all Germans are precision, but there's just something about him. And then one day, it got too much for me in the morning, and I blew up on him. And he was like, and I saw in his eyes the surprise that, where is this coming from? And I saw this innocence, and I suddenly realized, oh my gosh, this has all been within me. This is all me. The next thing I knew was, oh my gosh, I'm in trouble with Swami. And sure enough, we go to darshan in the morning. This was a time when Swami was very, very calm, had a lot of attention to me. And we're sitting there at darshan, and I feel that I know I'm going to get a whooping. So Swami comes and he sees both of us and he says, go, which means go for interview. So we go in for an interview, and I'm sitting there, and every time Swami looks at me, he's like serious like this. So we go into the private interview room, and we sit down, and the first thing Swami says to me, you got angry with him this morning, didn't you? And I said, yes, Swami. Why did you get angry at him? Why? And I didn't know how to answer. And then Swami says, why shouldn't you get angry at him? And I said, Swami, because you're in him. And he says, yes, I'm in him. Don't get angry at Swami. Don't get angry at Swami. We're all, every single person here, everyone who's listening, everything is him. You know, we think of what's in the Bhagavad Gita, where Krishna saw the Vishvasvarupa, right? Where Krishna showed the whole of what God is. The many arms, and many things like this. You're seeing it right now. You are seeing it right now. Each one of us is his form. The table, the chair you're sitting on is him. If we were to constantly know this, how much differently we would respond to everything. Sometimes I try to really think that way, then I put away my clothes very gently. I wash my car because that's Swami. I talk to my car because that's Swami. The money that I have in my pocket doesn't belong to me. Swami gave that. Thank you, Swami. If we think this way, not thinking it's mine, I did this, I did that, how much different it would be. So, getting back to our beautiful brother Jesus, I want to share to you a story which is very profound about Jesus. So as I said, my very first dream was a second dream was with Sai Baba and Shirdi Baba. So another very profound dream I had while there in India. I go to bed, and as we were saying that when we were doing service in the canteen, that was such a huge transformation for me. Before, I never, maybe once or a few times in my life, I would go and do service. I would go feed the poor or do something like this. But to do selfless service day after day, you really begin to realize not just what selfless service is, but you begin to see the thousands of faces, from every country, from every nook and cranny of the world, and see how the love that they had for Swami would just ooze from them, and all you want to do is feed them, to make them happy, do something. At least that was my duty back then. Wasn't easy. We wake up 5:30 in the morning, and our heads would hit the bed around 10 o'clock in the evening every day. And there was no such thing as having difficulty falling asleep. Just the next thing you know, it's time to wake up. You can hear, if you're late to wake up, you can hear the milk truck that's bringing all these cans of milk to the canteen, because we live very close to it. You go clunk, 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 and you go, oh my gosh, we're late. So we would run down. So one night, I go to bed, and I had the most profound of dreams. And I don't call these dreams because it was more real than what I'm experiencing here. So what happens is I'm opening my eyes in this new place. And it is the most beautiful place that I've ever seen. I see these mountains with snow caps, trees that have, and plants and flowers that have colors that are beyond the colors that we can see here, more colors than that. And it's just this feeling of peace and feeling of love I can feel, and I'm just realizing that someone is next to me. And I look over who's next to me, and who's next to me? It's Jesus. And oh my gosh, the face, the eyes, the love. And I notice that we're not standing still. We're actually moving pretty fast. He's running. And I realize that I'm running too. And I'm seeing his arms, and I can see where the nails were, where he was put on the cross. And he looks over at me, and this big, beaming smile that only God can do. And I look down, yes, I'm running, and guess what? Both of us are running on water. As you know, Jesus walked on water. Oh my gosh, I'm running with Jesus on the water. So we're running and running like this, and I'm like, oh, this is so beautiful. And we're running with and the amazing feeling was that I felt his absolute divinity, but at the same time I felt he was the closest of friends. That I could just sit down and play a game with him. But at the same time, you felt that absolute depth of his divinity. And so we're running across this lake. Just want to make sure my time is still good? Good. So we're running, and we get across this lake that we're running across, and this beautiful little pathway comes, and it comes to this small church. This little church in the middle of this beautiful valley. And we can hear the sound of people singing inside. And we go inside, and there is a mass happening, which is Christian hymns are being sung. And the people who are singing in there don't realize we're behind them, that Jesus is back there and I'm there. It's as if we're invisible. And this mass is going, and the mass is about Jesus' life, about how he was born, about how he sacrificed all comforts for the sake of all of us, that by his very nature and his very what was going through his blood was selflessness. And as the crescendo began to happen, to come to where Jesus is put on the cross, the Jesus who was next to me floated up and went onto the cross. And the nails were put onto him again. And even though his body felt that pain, there was this beautiful glow on his face. this love, this understanding of, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. And then I thought this was going to be the end of it, but the end was the next step, which was they sang, and I started to float up as well, and I'm floating up to Jesus, and the song was now coming to the point where, and now the Father has to be revealed. And I'm floating in front of Jesus, and I'm telepathically like, okay, are you going to reveal the Father? And then he goes like this, and he says to me, it's for you to do. It's for you to do. And so I float above him, and there above him is this portico that's covered with this burgundy veil. And this text above it, I can't remember, but in this language I can't read. And I go and I open and ready to open it, and finally the big crescendo of the music, the organ and everything, and I open it, and light just floods out from this. And I'm gone. This Leslie, this individual thing is just this speck in the back. And I'm in bliss. And I wake up from this. What does all this mean? Swami, as I said, Jesus, Sai Baba. They've come here to show us how to live the divine life. They showed us who we are and to know that we are divine. When the devotee said to Swami, Swami, you are the Messiah. You are the Messiah. And Swami says, no. You are all the Messiah. We are all the Messiah. It is God living in us. Swami came down so that he may plant himself in our hearts. Jesus came down to plant himself in our hearts. Not in the papers, in the books, in the Bibles, in the videos, and all those things. Yes, those are important, but he lives in our heart. So, this revelation that's supposed to come, this opening, is the opening of all our hearts. Sathya Sai Baba came to usher in the golden age. Do we live in a golden age right now? Does it feel like it? Be honest. No. It feels like we're mired in this heaviness still. But something is stirring. Do you feel it in your heart? Do you crave? As Jesus said, the kingdom of heaven is within you, but the kingdom of heaven shall be on earth as well. How is this going to come about? You know, Swami said he could snap his finger like this, right? And he can make the world into a golden age. But what will happen if we're the same way we are right now, the same level of consciousness we are right now? Within a very short time, we'll be back to the same thing that we are right now, where we fight over land, we fight over our religions, our beliefs, the very thing that the founders of these religions, well, they didn't even found a religion. Swami said he didn't come to start a new religion. Jesus didn't come here to start a new religion. They came here to open our hearts, to plant a seed. As St. Paul said, that Jesus was the first fruit on the vine. And that vine, the fruits on there are going to ripen. There's a plan here happening. All the avatars, all the saints and sages, there's a big story unfolding. And you're part of it. Not a standby, not a witness. You are part of it. It's an incredible thing that's about to happen. We don't know when exactly, and I'll just tell you another dream to finish this off. It's always wondered to me, how is this all going to be? What is our place in all of this? This one dream I had was actually happened when I was staying in Sai Baba's house, Mr. Moore's house. I was working in LA, a very difficult time I was having, a really hard job. And I had a dream. In that dream, I'm sitting for darshan, and I'm sitting outside, and Swami comes out, and I get up on my knees. And Swami sees, there's Wesley with the problem again. And he walks over sweetly to me, and he looks down, and he says, "What's the problem?" And I said, "Swami, I feel like I'm going nowhere. I'm getting nowhere. I'm doing all these things, I'm doing my sadhana, I'm doing the things, I'm working and everything, but it's getting nowhere." Swami picks me up, and we start to walk, and he pulls me close, and I realize that we're somehow at the same height. I know I'm taller than him, but we're the same height, and we start giving darshan together. And people don't see separate. We're one and the same. Because that's the truth. Swami's teaching us we are one and the same. We just keep thinking we're not. And of course, never this ego, be careful with the ego. The ego is not God. Don't go, I can tell you an hour-long story about don't go down that road. So, and we're walking, and Swami leans over, and he says, whispers in my ear, and I can feel the hairs on those little fine hairs on the side of my face, and he says to me, don't worry, I'm keeping you low right now, but very soon I will use you fully. And he's not just saying this to me. I know you feel it in your hearts. And I'll tell you, this is the big dream. In India, this ties it all together. I'm walking, and this is the dream in India, so I'm walking outside, I'm walking in the ashram, and I'm walking by the big buildings, and there's a spiral staircase that's going up. And this spiral staircase, I can hear some commotion going. And people are talking up there, so I walk up this spiral staircase. And who do I see? What do I see? I see Swami up there. And I see all these people. And they're all wearing Swami's robes. And I look down, and I'm wearing a robe as well. And what comes out of my mouth, I turn over and I look at Swami and I said, will there only be a few? And Swami smiles and says, no, there will be many and many and many. And suddenly I look over in the center, and we all start to put our hands into the center as we all start to greet, and I can see every color and creed, black, white, every single. I'm looking down and I can see people's feet. They're wearing chappals, they're wearing flip-flops, boots, high heel shoes, every type of person. And we all put our hands into the middle. And the feeling, and Swami too, the Swami that I know was putting hands, and what was the realization? That one consciousness, one divinity, many forms. We are all not just his children. We are, as Jesus said, what was the story he went through? What did he do? He says, I am the messenger of God. Next step, I am the Son of God. And what's the third one? I and my Father are one. Every one of you are on this journey. He's given you this opportunity. It's not far away. We don't know when. But we are all heading there. And please, and myself too, don't get off this train. You've got the ticket. Don't get off. It's a beautiful, beautiful future that's here. Swami and Jesus, however you want to call it, this whole thing will end in this beautiful revelation. Swami says what's about to come is greater than you can imagine. Sai Baba.